In the 4th century BC, Greek civilization was reaching new heights of intellectual curiosity. While many philosophers looked to the mechanics of the universe, others turned their attention to the inner workings of the human body. Herophilus, a physician educated at the Hippocratic school, moved to Alexandria, Egypt, to utilize its vast library and begin a new era of medical study. Alongside his student Erasistratus, he pioneered the field of anatomy. To understand the living body, they obtained condemned criminals from the Alexandrian rulers. However, they did not wait for these prisoners to die. Instead, they performed vivisections, dissections on living subjects. These procedures were sometimes conducted in public view. Because anesthetics did not exist, victims endured unimaginable suffering, feeling every incision until they perished from pain or blood loss. Over 40 years, Herophilus and Erasistratus mapped the nervous system and internal organs through this brutal practice. Their findings were revolutionary, but the original scrolls were eventually lost when the Library of Alexandria burned. Fast forward to 1954, when the United States detonated Castle Bravo in the Marshall Islands. This thermonuclear bomb was 1,000 times more powerful than the one dropped on Hiroshima. When the blast produced 2.5 times the expected yield, radioactive fallout blanketed nearby occupied islands. In response, the U.S. government initiated Project 4.1, a secret study to observe the effects of radiation on the exposed residents. For decades, these non-consenting citizens were monitored as they developed weeping skin wounds, thyroid cancer, and birth defects. Despite the clear evidence of suffering, the project was kept under a veil of secrecy for years. During the same era, the Soviet Union sought ways to eliminate political opponents discreetly. In 1921, the Secret Service established the Kamera, a specialized poison laboratory. Here, prisoners from the gulags were used as subjects for lethal testing. Scientists sought a poison that was colorless, tasteless, and untraceable during an autopsy. They tested horrific substances like ricin and cyanide, eventually developing C2. This concoction caused victims to weaken and die calmly within 15 minutes, leaving no trace of foul play. While the lab was officially closed after the Soviet Union collapsed, the legacy of its chemical warfare remains a dark chapter in espionage history. In 1946, the United States directed another unethical experiment, this time in Guatemala. Known as the Guatemalan Syphilis Study, it involved over 5,500 soldiers, psychiatric patients, and orphans. Led by Dr. John Cutler, researchers intentionally infected over 1,300 people with syphilis and gonorrhea to test the effectiveness of penicillin. The subjects were often infected through direct contact or via sex workers funded by the experiment. In one case, a patient named Berta was reinfected and had infected pus placed in her eyes just days before she died. Despite the brutality, the study produced almost no medical value, and a formal apology was not issued until 2010. However, perhaps no facility in history matches the notoriety of Unit 731. Established by the Japanese military in 1935 in occupied China, this biological warfare lab masqueraded as a lumber mill. Prisoners were stripped of their names and referred to as maruta, or logs. Inside, hundreds of thousands of Chinese and Russian captives were subjected to atrocities driven by professional curiosity. Experiments included vivisections without anesthesia, testing grenades on live targets, and placing victims in vacuum chambers until their eyes were forced from their sockets. Some were frozen alive to study frostbite, while others were dehydrated until they became mummified. When the war ended, the Japanese destroyed the facility to hide the evidence. However, the United States granted immunity to many of the lead scientists in exchange for their data, claiming the research was too valuable to lose. While a few individuals were later tried by the Soviet Union, many of the perpetrators of Unit 731 never faced justice for their crimes.